For weeks now, we've seen protesters marching against the death of black people at the hands of police. But there is, in fact, a greater scourge targeting the black population in the USA. This is the face of racism. When determining the scale of a problem, it's important to put in proportion. Now, there's nothing worse than being read statistics on a YouTube video. It can be really necessary, but it's not much fun. So this will be as brief and to the point as possible. And for that sake, there'll be a little bit of rounding and loose math just for the sake of the flow of the video, but I'll be showing the sources for my information. In an average year, US police kill around 1,000 people, and about a third of whom, or about 300 of who, are black people. Now this is disproportionate per capita. Black Americans are about 2.5 times more likely to be shot than white Americans. And there are reasons for that, but that's a whole different video. It's also important to note that that gap has been closing since 2015 and might have even been totally closed in 2019. Now, for comparison, at that rate of all police fatalities, justified or not, it would take 600 years to match the death toll of the US Civil War in which the black people were freed. That's what state-backed violence looks like. I don't think most people would describe that as a genocide either, and yet BLM protesters and activists speak constantly of genocide, even as they applaud their impending demographic dominance. But the population was less than 1/10 of the current US population when the Civil War occurred. Another war of that scale with today's population would see approximately 7.5 million deaths. That's the violence that you could expect of 7,500 years of police interactions with criminals, and all of that 7,500 years of violence would occur in a 4-year span. That's what these people are asking for when they ask for a revolution, the end of police, of law, and capitalism. In another comparison, 3,500 Americans drown a year, 3.5 times as many lives that are lost by police. But it's even more shocking when you look into the statistics and you find out that not only water is more murderous than police, but it's also more racist. Quote, the Center for Disease Control, disparities were greatest in swimming pools, with swimming pool drowning rates among blacks aged 5 to 19 years 5.5 times higher than those among whites in the same age group. The disparity was greatest at ages 11 to 12 years. At these ages, blacks drown in swimming pools at 10 times the rate of whites. And the victims of drowning are mainly children, not criminals. Maybe it's something to do with the color blue? The boy's in blue, the water's blue. I mean, it's got to be connected, right? Now, if we examine the transport statistics, we can see that there is yet another racial disparity. This time in trains. Those metal machines on rails. It turns out that not only are they arguably more racist than police, choosing to murder black victims 3 times as often as whites, but they kill nearly as many people. One can only imagine what they would do if they could get off their tracks. In yet another example of the minuscule scale of the problem that they're protesting, the number of unarmed Americans killed by police, somewhere between 41 and 53, is on par with the number of Americans killed by lightning. They might as well protest the sky gods. And while they're out blocking traffic, they should know that 200 times as many unarmed or non-resisting pedestrians are killed by vehicles. 6,000 lives are lost this way every year. 6-fold the death toll imposed by police. Hey BLM, jaywalking shouldn't be a death sentence. Oh, and what's this? Black children are the most likely demographic to die in a pedestrian fatality. Where are the protests? Why are you telling them to get into the streets? How many lives will be saved by getting them to stone police cars? USA Today wrote a fact check about the protests, which is itself deceptive and misleading. Go figure. The title: Fact Check. More black people died in 2019 police shootings than in George Floyd protests. Well, that's obviously false, right? Except that wasn't the claim that they were proving was false. Quote, one Instagram post from a conservative content creator, Drew Hernandez, claimed, more black people have been killed due to the George Floyd riots than unarmed black people fatally shot by police in 2019. This is not progress. Skipping down to the conclusion, we can see how callous and blasé they are in examining the meaning of this claim, entirely laser focused on defeating it at all costs. The claim in the post has been rated false. In 2019, 14 unarmed black people were fatally shot by police. 14 black people have died during the protests, but not all of these deaths were directly caused by the protests. 6 of the deaths are either unrelated or the relation to the protests is under investigation. That's some Snopes level fact checking there. Get you on a technicality. The author of this article doesn't even seem to have thought twice about this. More deaths at the protests won't necessarily result in less deaths at the hands of police either, or, as I think will increasingly happen, armed self-defenders. I wonder why you'd even write an article so shallow and so petty and so ultimately incredibly harmful. Putting these issues into a relative context is crucial to determining how big the problem is and what the reciprocal solution is. The purpose of this mass brainwashing, this breeding of hatred and anger and existential fear, can only be to create the inevitable self-fulfilling prophecy it insists is already here. They've already brought back segregation.
Can I ask why you're following me?
To make sure you're not doing anything you don't need to be doing.
What would that be? What are the orders you got?
They will defund the police. They will become the police. They will brutalize you. And when you protest, they won't be lenient.
We just got told there's another group they're meeting with there, and then they'll be moving in a few minutes, so be ready.
Somebody over the age of 18 know how to use a gun? Take the clip out and put it back in.
Yo, no one's gonna like fucking ask me walking in here with an after.
Nah, just come right back in.
Hell nah, bruh.
Keep the barrel down.
Hey, keep that down.
Hey, if they arrest me, you got my bond?
I got you. Hey, I got you, just don't say any names.
Sit it down and knock it out. You better not mumble a name.